So what you got there?
Well, we gave our script to a producer who was interested, and then he gave us these notes that you just took from me, and you're gonna read them.
Inert and without humanity.
Yeah, it's like he just read the words. He didn't get the big picture.
In one ear, out one ear.
Well, let me ask you something. Have you ever had anything produced?
Yeah, we wrote I Am Legend. I just work catering to keep in touch with the common man.
What I'm getting at is, have you ever heard your words read aloud?
No.
Exhalation.
Reading on deuterium levels?
705.2. Captain.
Your ship will never withstand the quantum flux between a binary star.
What's that? Binary, what is that?
It's when like 2 stars, they kind of form.
Oh. It's not important. We just got to keep the flow going.
It will in a Gödel space-time field.
Without negative energy synthesis?
We reverse the tachyon cannon, generate an Alcubierre warped quantum tunnel through the Cauchy horizon.
And form a naked singularity.
Du Clark.
What are you doing on the bridge? You should be in a Serja tube.
I was scared. I heard explosions.
If the coordinates you stole from your boyfriend aren't accurate, you'll hear more, because this ship will be totally atomized.
Boyfriend? He's a slave trader. I was nothing to him but merchandise.
Fine merchandise. Du Clark?
The best.
If we don't make it...
I don't use the word don't.
He pushes her away roughly.
No, I got it.
Sorry.
I just wanted to thank you for saving my people. Dies. For real?
She fucking died.
Oh, Juliet died.
7, check her readings.
Life functions. Terminated. Cauchy horizon passed at deuterium. Level 7.001.
A statistical anomaly. What you call luck.
Is it?
Hello.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the most underrated literary podcast out there.
Mm-hmm.
As recently said a year ago, but I just saw it today by a reviewer on Apple Podcasts. The Spike.
I didn't realize that was a year ago.
Yeah, it was from 2021.
Sorry, sir, but we do see you now.
Shout outs.
Mm-hmm. Perspicacious commentary with some on-air belching.
Nailed it, honestly.
It's kind of what we're going for.
Yeah.
That's our vibe.
Little high, little low, you know what I mean? That's really what we're trying to do.
And that's eating right now. We're filling the description.
I have a cold.
Yeah, Matt.
And so I'm trying to mitigate some of the grosser and more disruptive sounds I might make. But it's going to be a little gravelly, a little gooey, some of the stuff that's
honestly, I love that. I love that for you.
For the most part, though, cold voice is, I think, pretty cool sounding.
Yeah, it makes you sound more like,
You're bassy, you've got some substance.
Yeah.
You sound a little older.
Everyone wants to sound like they have a cold permanently.
Yeah.
Right.
That's why I drool all the time.
Yeah, I think that's
I'm
genuinely
hoping
why
that my voice gets more gravelly.
Some people
deeper.
smoke.
You said drool? Oh,
Jewel.
Jewel. Yeah, you haven't seen Paul in a while. He drools all the time now.
I do drool.
That's his new thing.
Yeah.
Yep. I do it on purpose, and I'm trying to get deeper voice.
I feel like your voice is already pretty deep, man.
Oh, thank you.
Who has the deepest voice here?
I can't hear myself. I feel like I have the highest.
I think that's probably true.
Fuck you, dude.
No, it's not a dig.
I'm
dude.
joking. I'm joking.
This
I'm
isn't.
joking.
This isn't a fucking. This isn't.
How
a,
dare
this,
you?
This isn't like a fucking like alt-right incel stream where it's the depth of your voice is the means is the quality of your fucking manhood.
Yeah.
How dare you? It was a trap, and I got you.
I mean, it's like Ben Shapiro has a high voice. He's a great guy.
Wow. Thank you. You won me back. That's
True.
right.
True. Yes, indeed. All right. Well, today on the Spine Crackers podcast. Oh, by the way, my name is Gabe. I'm one of the hosts of that podcast.
Yeah, my name's Matt. I'm, yes, also a host here.
My name is Paul, and I am a host.
So today we are talking about, interestingly, if you listen to our last episode with Waste Mailing List on John Wyndham's The Day of the Triffids, we all of us talked about how we never read sci-fi, and here we are doing another sci-fi book.
It's actually our third one this year.
What was it? What was the other one? Oh, and the Kavan.
Kavan, yeah.
Yeah. That one, I don't want to get into the genre discussion.
That's that whole literary sci-fi bleeding genre bullshit. But yeah, and I think consequently there's some overlap a little bit. I don't know.
Between what and what?
Oh, just between some of the points, and then like about that book and then this book.
Yeah.
So although there's a very like different, I would say, sci-fi approach. Obviously, not just it being story collection, but like I'd say a whole different worldview about speculative fiction and its purpose in general.
I agree. So the book we're talking about, and will continue to talk about for the next couple hours, is Ted Chiang's collection. When was this published? I didn't even look. 2020.
Yeah.
What? So why did you think 2008?
I thought. Is that
that's
right?
so long ago.
Yeah, dude.
I looked up the wrong thing. Apparently, I was like really confident that was.
Didn't Story of Your Life and others didn't the Story of Your Life and Other whatever come out also before 2008? His first collection.
I don't know when that one came out, but I mean, it's possible that some of these stories were published earlier because I think there's only
definitely.
I think there's only 2 original stories in here, 2 or 3. But anyway, yeah, Ted Chiang's collection, Exhalation, is what we're talking about. Highly praised, highly lauded. New York Times top 10 books of the year. All kinds of fancy reviews.
Accolades out the ass.
Accolades out the ass, like no joke. So this book was pretty hype. Ted Chiang in general has been pretty hype.
Ever since Arrival and
yeah. I didn't even know that was one of his stories until we were planning this episode.
Yeah, that's the reason I chose the book, is because I like that movie a lot. Made me cry. I liked some sappy sci-fi.
It's a good movie. Well, I think it speaks, maybe getting back to what Matt was saying, the sappy kind of like posy-mental energy of Arrival is, I think, one of Chiang's kind of hallmarks, part of his view, I think, of the work he does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's part of a general project to potentially infuse science fiction with some more, positive energy, basically. Like, hey
some
guys,
post-rock energy.
Hey, like, come on, science. We don't know what's going on, but isn't that exciting? Or like, there's ways for us to be more human, sort of the spiritual senses and all this kind of stuff.
We can get better through. Like, I read Joyce Carol Oates wrote a review for this for the New Yorker, I think. And the title of the review is "Science Fiction Doesn't Have to Be Dystopian," and I think that's definitely what Chiang is going for. He's going for, I wouldn't say utopian either, but
no,
a sort of small scale, like, bit by bit we can improve ourselves via grappling with some of these problems.
Yeah, very specifically, I would say through science.
Yeah, right, of course, yeah.
But
through the style of technical writing, I would say too, because he was a technical writer.
Yes, and that. Okay, I'm just gonna.
Before we go on, Gabe, you got to say what you were gonna say.
I'm doing it. I'm just gonna. I'm just gonna do it right now. We normally save our unvarnished thoughts for the score section. Ted Chiang is bringing the posy mental vibes. I'm bringing the negativity. today because
love it.
I honestly hated this book pretty deeply.
Yes.
I didn't like it. We'll talk about why. But it was
like when you don't like it.
It was
fun.
I
love it.
It was a big fucking fart stinker for me. There was the last story. We'll talk about it. I think the last story was pretty good, but everything else was I thought pretty like actively bad. And we'll talk about it. And so maybe that's just because I've been in a dark place recently. Playing Dark Souls has consumed the last month of my life, basically, or a few weeks. But I don't know. My mental.
It's actually a very light place.
My mental might be off. I've just hated everything that I've read lately, and that included this book.
Yeah. Okay.
I love it. I don't condone hate speech, but I love gay hate book speech.
Yeah, Gabe hate book speech is okay. Yeah. My only joke was I said Ted Chiang, more like Ted talks.
Yeah.
And then I just said Ted writes. That was my joke. Because that was kind of the posy mental energy vibe that I got, the kind of rah-rah science stuff. And I also, one of my extracurriculars, I read Labatut's, right? When We Cease to Understand the World.
Yes, another one, right?
Felt very in conversation with some of the themes here. And I also watched Devs.
Oh my god, dude, so fucking good, right?
Yeah, and like so much of Devs is because one of my first. We'll get into the stories. We'll just go through them and we'll try and get through. We'll just go through them. I'm assuming in order, right? So like, but I think that one of the themes was clearly to me like, and this is why I was thinking of Devs, which I was watching, like. It's like it's just free will gussied up in different conceptual frames, basically.
That's like they're obsessed with that topic.
Yeah, and that seems to be something that Ted Chiang in particular in this collection is obsessed with, if it's through the medium of time travel or quantum parallel universes or
Digimon.
Or
Digimon.
AI. Yeah, basically, Digimon. Yeah.
Yeah, for all the Digimon Neopet Pokemon lovers out there, there's a story in here for you.
There's a story for you for sure in this book.
The longest one. It's basically a novella. It's like what, like 100 110 pages or something?
Yeah. It's a novella. But yeah, the connection there was just like free will. Free will seems to be the underlying sort of topic, even in things in this collection that didn't seem quite to be about free will explicitly.
Yeah, and I think I didn't initially make the connection that you mentioned earlier, Matt, but back to Wyndham. But between Wyndham, Chiang, and then something like Devs, which again, excellent show that everybody should watch. I think. Did you like it? You finished it?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Well, I think Alex Garland is somebody, because Alex Garland started off as a writer himself, like, and so he has a very like I would say writerly and novelistic approach to his movies. Sometimes they're a little like glitzy or whatever. You were saying Ex Machina was like kind of underwhelming.
I didn't love it.
But yeah, I would lump him in with in that group of contemporary, basically science fiction narrative creators.
Yeah,
and I like him a lot.
And well, I think the Wyndham connection is interesting because it's Chiang's, I would say, based on these stories, Chiang's attitude towards the enterprise of science as a whole is, as we've said, like way on the opposite spectrum from Wyndham.
Totally. Yes.
Where Wyndham is maybe not totally on the opposite spectrum, because Wyndham is also not like a full dystopian. We discussed in the Patreon segment with Waste whether or not the book was eco-fash and just return to nature, like destroy civilization, etc. I don't think Wyndham is quite there. He's a little bit more on the just kind of like we need to be cautious. We need to go like this.
Yeah.
This is all going way too fast for our moral evaluations of it to make any sense. Chiang is just like, let's go, dude. I mean, I wouldn't say he's like fully like I fucking love science like Reddit person.
Right.
But he's certainly more optimistic about the sort of moral and humanistic implications of science than someone like Wyndham.
100%. Yeah. he's just like his caution is far outweighed by his like expectation that it will just merely reveal more about us in, you know, these very like supposedly non-scientific ways. There's even a short story in here where science is basically just directly described as a religion. That was kind of
The
weird.
last one.
Not the last, the second to last.
Second to last one. Yeah.
Well, so yeah.
Well, let's get into it then.
All right.
So there's actually one thing that I found interesting, just from a purely formal perspective, is that there's not a ton of stories in this book. Like a lot of short story collections are, especially for one this long. This is like what, 350 pages almost.
Yeah.
There's only like eight or nine stories or something like that, because a number of them are pretty beefy, like 40, 50 pages, and then there's the novella. It's like 120. And then there's a couple that are much shorter, but in general, like there's these were pretty beefy stories, which I thought was interesting, at least from sort of just like a short story collection perspective, what that normally looks like, you know?
Yeah. Well, the long ones are like newer, I would say. It sort of correlates, and then there's one that's like 2 pages.
Yeah.
And then yes,
which is my favorite
from like
one,
89.
actually. Spoilers.
That was your favorite one, the short one?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the second one, right?
That's the third one. Yeah.
All right.
So let's jump into it. So the first story is entitled "The Merchant and the Alchemist's Gate," and this is about. It's a guy. The setup is that it's a guy kind of telling some unknown kingly type sultan figure. It takes place in the Middle East. It's at some unspecified previous date. And he's sort of relating to him this odd experience that he's had with a weird sort of shopkeeper guy who has a time travel gate invention, basically, right? Yeah. And it kind of circles back in on itself, and there's stories within the story. This one I was very excited about to start. Like, I liked the setup.
Yeah, the guy putting his hand through the teleporter and it coming out like a couple seconds later or whatever. And then he's like, I got a big one of these, and it's like however the size relates to the time dilation or whatever. It's kind
I think
of fun.
The big one is like what, 20 years or something?
20 years, yeah.
And so it's basically about, you know, how people deal with the past and the future, and how we would deal with it if we had access to it, sort of in a more or less unfettered way, through this sort of technological. You know, I'll say this because I'm just being negative the whole episode. But in the Oates, the Joyce Carol Oates review, she I think absurdly mentions Chiang in the same as like a inheritor of like Borges.
I heard this shit too, man, from somebody else.
And I almost pooped my pants when I read that, because I was like, that's a joke. It has to be a joke. Obviously, like, I'm not saying hold every vaguely sci-fi writer to the standard of Borges or fantasy short story writer, et cetera, but I will say I do think Chiang is inviting that sort of a comparison, and this story in particular gave me some like Borges vibes in terms of the setup. Yeah,
this was kind of the only one that felt that way, though, to me.
Execution, very different story. Yeah.
Well, also this story is very, very different than the rest of them too. It's like, I would say in terms of the scientific element, it's the only like fantastical one.
True.
In terms of just like it's not science based. It's like magic. You're like in the Middle East in the past, and there's this mystical guy.
Yeah, there's no explanation about how this thing was invented or what it is, and
it kind of reads like a fable too. There's like 3 different stories about 3 different guys that go through the time travel process.
Yes,
and it reads like a fable.
Yeah, I didn't mind this one. It was just like you know, it takes the time travel concept, like, you know, at this point in my life, time travel stories are. It's tough for me to get excited about them. Like,
Right.
Yeah.
because, and this one takes the route of you can't change the past, right? Like, basically, like.
Or the future, arguably.
Or right, like whatever it's called. Time is a time like curve or a time like loop, a strange time like loop, whatever they call this idea. Like, you know, you can only like. I also thought that the sort of conclusion about the implications of the alchemists, like obsidian gates, and like what they do is like you can only sort of enrich your understanding of like what has occurred.
Elder Scrolls floor Oblivion.
And Looper and you know, like
And that show on
you can
Netflix
shake
I was
your own
talking to you
hand.
about. What was that?
The Time Traveler's Wife, which is they're coming out soon as a movie.
Dark, the show Dark on Netflix, the German show.
Dark, yeah,
Oh,
right.
oh
same,
yeah.
It's like
Same concepts.
33-year time loops, and you just keep going back and forth, and you just can't change a thing.
Honestly, just watch Primer. Like Primer just ended the conversation for me.
I was
about
saying
it.
that too. Yeah. Just the coolest, most rigorous and cool exploration of that idea that you're just creating feedback loops essentially. Like you can't alter either outcome. You can just enrich the interactions that make it so. I guess.
And Time
Right.
Crimes. You guys you've never watched Time Crimes. I've mentioned it like 2 years ago.
I remember.
It's a great movie.
Has either of you seen Time? I haven't seen this, but Time Cop. Do you know what the Time Cop's ruling on time is?
I've not seen Time Cop.
Is this like a B movie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Van
no.
Damme? No.
Don't talk about Time Crimes in the same sentence.
It might be. Wait, what? You don't want someone to mention Time Cop with Time Crimes, dude? Come on, that's
Time
obvious.
Crimes is actually a really good movie. You guys haven't seen it. To me, it's like up there
You're
with
being
Primer.
hipster.
It's great.
I believe you, dude. I believe you.
That's okay.
I believe you. So anyway, yeah. I mean, I think that I think this was probably my second favorite of the stories. Because it wasn't offensively bad to me. And I think that it is sort of an interesting because basically Paul mentioned the like fable quality of it and all of these kind of mini stories within stories, because what happens is the main character is like talking to the shopkeeper and it's like, yo, I want to go through this gate. And he has to send him to his other shop. So this takes place in Baghdad, but his other shop with the one that goes for 20 years is back in Cairo. So he has to go there and do it, blah, blah, blah. And he's sort of asking him about what it's like. And the shopkeeper tells him these stories of other people who've gone through it and kind of what they did with it.
And it's in the classic fable sort of triplicate, right? There's like the three stories, each showing a sort of success, a cautionary, and then like a complication, like an unintended, to give the full spectrum before we get this guy who's relating his own experiences, like account of when he goes through the gate.
Yeah. So the first fable story, I forget the order that they're in exactly, but the first one, if I'm remembering correctly, is the guy who goes through and like discovers that he became rich.
Yes.
Right.
The scarf guy.
Yeah. He's like he sells textiles, and he goes through and he sees 20 years in the future that he's rich now, and he's like, what the hell? How did this happen? This is sick. And so he seeks out his 20 years in the future self, and they have a conversation, and the guy's like, I don't want to. He basically goes like, no spoilers. I'm not going to tell you.
Yeah.
Except he gives him like some coordinates in the desert to go find, right?
Yeah.
And he does, and it's basically buried treasure.
He does some cheeky like just like catastrophic like don't get hit by this horse carriage that's like gone out of control.
Yeah,
and stuff.
walk on the right side of the street on this day instead of the left.
Yeah.
But then like the weird paradoxical element of it is like he knew that he said that to himself.
Yes.
Because he already lived it. You know what I mean? Like he didn't actually make him move out of the way, but that's the kind of thing I like about these kind of time travel stories, though.
Well, and that's one of the interesting implications of the way that this one is done, is that it seems like
Real brain tickler.
it's just going to be a loop. It's just going to be a loop forever, right? Because that guy, when he reaches 20 years in the future, he's also then waiting for his younger self to come through the time machine to talk to him. Like, that's an experience that he's going to have in the future. So it just is like infinitely looping almost, it seems like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's the thing. That's the strange time-like curves nature.
Yeah. And then the other
Sort of
story,
like Back to the Future.
The other story is about a dude who, exactly.
Back to the Future too.
Just if you have any more time travel
Biff.
things, just name them now. Get them all out.
Time Bandits. Terminators, all of them.
Avengers
All the
Endgame.
Terminators.
Avengers. Yep.
I'll think of more.
Yeah, I bet we will. But yeah, and so what the second one's what? It's about a guy who like goes into the future and sees that his future self has not improved his life as much as he was expecting, and then winds up like stealing from himself in the future.
Right.
Yep.
And taking it back and living extravagantly. Becoming destitute, and then, oh no, I have to sneeze. No, wait.
The worst feeling.
Oh.
Love that. I love
Bless
that for you.
Sorry, everybody.
And then that one is serves, like Matt was saying, the role of the sort of cautionary tale, because this guy basically just fucks himself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but he fucks
'cause
himself in a weird way. Like
it's like the money gets stolen from him or something when he's a younger self. When he's his younger self, but his older self like already knows that his money is going to be stolen from him.
Which, so he tries to hide it.
But then again, it's like, wouldn't he know where the last place he hid it was? So why did he put it in that drawer?
Well, his younger self.
That was my main like Mahler question. I was like,
Mahler.
If he, I don't know, that kind of goofed me. But
This one invites less of a Mahler, shitty, kind of impulse in me, almost because of the fable sort of nature of it, or the allegory or whatever it is. Whereas the other stuff is like hard sci-fi,
Fucking hard.
where it's just rock solid and there's no, the rigorously engaging with the concept.
Yeah.
I think this one still made sense internally.
Yeah.
It's just weird. It's just a weird thing to think of, and that's what kind of made it like kind of pleasant to think about.
Well, and the final fable story, right, is like it's the wife of the original of the first guy goes through, and she basically like fucks the younger version of the guy.
She jailbaits her younger husband.
Yeah.
In the past, so that he's good at fucking her as the young woman.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. It's kind of weird.
That one's about being horny in general. It's a horny fable.
Well, and then the actual guy, the main character of the story, ultimately does go through, right? Because he wants to see his try to save his wife who dies, right?
Yep.
Or whatever, and he can't ultimately, right? The same thing happens, and so I guess the takeaway is that like, even if we had access to technology like this, it would be about generating additional insight rather than actually affecting events, right?
Yeah.
And
this instantiation of time travel, yeah.
And I just have to say, like right now, this was one of my big problems with these stories, is that there's basically like a fucking labeled paragraph that's like, this is the moral of this story at the end of every fucking one.
Oh, it's a training wheels book. It's like you're reading a book
that's
of
what
training
it feels
wheels.
like. It's
really weird.
It's like baby's first philosophical concept, free will, like and
I have to mention right now that this is a New York Times national bestseller and top 10 books of 2020.
Apparently, also
it made me sad.
One of the best, like on the back, dude, it says one of the best books of the year: Washington Post, Time, NPR, Esquire, Fox, AV Club, Guardian, Financial Times, Dallas Morning News. It's like anyway, whatever. We've only talked about one
people
story.
have diapers on.
They must have diapers on.
They have literal diapers. And
we don't have
pants.
we don't have to get into the weird nature of the hype machine and its own motivations to do so. You know what I mean? Yeah.
But it really did just feel, for me, and I'm gonna come back to this point, but like someone who has had a little taste of philosophical education and like was trying to make that into something more significant than it actually is, and then turning it into all these little like. I'm just gonna read it because
this story gets Reddit gold.
Exactly. So this is how the first story ends. And this is just out of nowhere. Like, no one says this. This is just fucking this, or I guess this is the guy still talking because it's all the guy talking to the king.
Talking to the emperor.
Yeah. Let's see. Here we go. I would be honored to relate everything I know of the future if your majesty sees fit to ask, but for myself, the most precious knowledge I possess is this. Nothing erases the past. There is repentance, there is atonement, and there is forgiveness. That is all, but that is enough. It's like, okay, that's literally just, you said, here's the moral of the story. Thanks.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
Excluding that would have made it better, right?
Really rubs me the wrong way, that kind of thing. And it doesn't help, talking about like diapers and babies. We haven't talked about it yet, but like Chiang's writing is so, I can't think of a better word than basic. Like, it's so sparse, and not sparse in like a creative way. It's just literally just like
functional.
Yeah. And
like,
I guess this gets back to the technical writer thing.
A goes to point A goes to point B. Character A goes to point B. This is it's so direct. It's like, I was thinking about like other really kind of concise, clear, direct writers, and I was just thinking about Murakami, and I was like, the only comparison can be the word sparseness, but there's something that's so lacking in Chiang's writing. It's just like he's missing like huge elements that make writing interesting.
Well, you know what did you ever see the show Party Down?
Yes. Oh my God, I love that show.
I might put this as an audio clip somewhere in the app, but like, there's that whole episode where I forget Guilfoyle. Who the fuck is the guy who plays Guilfoyle in like Silicon Valley?
Yeah, I don't know that actor's name.
That guy?
Yeah.
He's like the grumpy nerd who's like trying to write a science fiction script with his friend.
Yes.
And they're like at David Gutenberg's house catering like a birthday, and the like subplot of that episode was like basically them being hard sci-fi nerds who like hate like philosophical sort of fantastical. They're like, we want to know how the ion cannons function and like the physics of it,
right.
Or it's stupid and it's for babies. But then slowly like everyone like reads their script and they're like, your script is super boring and unengaging. Like I don't care about any of the stuff that's going on. And they slowly like learn to like add human warmth to it as everyone sort of like over the course of the episode like pitches ideas about how to. I don't know. I was just thinking about that, like,
which is so weird because I got that same vibe from Chiang's writing, and it's just I was being gaslit by the hype machine about this book because everything I read about it, all the reviews, everything was it's so deeply human and warm
soulful.
And soulful. Someone called it fucking soulful.
It's like, well, is your soul made out of freaking cardboard? Is it like a cardboard cutout?
And I didn't get
circuit board
any of that at all throughout this.
It was lacking any soul.
Well, are people that starved for like a sort of more positive, basic like tone in sci-fi that
it
this
could
is
be
like holy shit? You know, I think we do have a glut of like dystopia and post-apocalypse. I mean, that's true, but
very true. That's very true. And you know, whatever else you want to say about it, which I'm going to continue to say, I think Chiang is certainly doing something different from what almost all other sci-fi media is doing right now. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, and I think his background is a little relevant. I know it's not, but it's like, he was a computer engineer in school. He did technical writing for a really long time and did writers' workshops, and it just feels very evident, you know, like Paul, you were saying, like, oh, this causes this, and like and now we need to add an element of surprise, and here's a character who needs a sort of, a personal issue that they need to resolve, blah, blah, blah. Like, it feels by the numbers. And one of the things that people said a lot about Chiang, even fans of his, a lot of the time was, like, it's not so much about the writing, it's about the ideas you're engaging with, you know? Like,
but even that argument, I'm just like, well...
But, yeah, that and when
some
that's
of
all
these
you have...
ideas, Like I was thinking, because I don't know why I thought it was from 2008, but there's a story in here about, we'll get to it, but it's about like basically like being able to see all your memories throughout your entire life. And there was a Black Mirror episode like that, like season 3 or something. And I was
much
like,
better,
oh,
much better than
they must have stolen this because he wrote it in 2008, but then it's 2020. I'm like, so he's like, he almost feels behind now that I think about it. It's written in 2020. A lot of the ideas seem like already kind of out of date to me, but I guess we'll get to that later. But
And even Black Mirror, I just think of when Felix from Chapo is making fun of it. It's like, you know,
Mate.
what if your girlfriend was a computer?
Yeah.
What if you plugged your dog into the outlet? Like shit like that.
yeah. That's kind of how this book feels.
Well, I think that was the thing that bothered me the most. Like, I'm fine with straightforward, simple writing, although I think Matt is dead on that a lot of the writing in here is just very clearly like newbie, fresh out of a writer's workshop thing. Like, it's just.
Or it's like writing that you would write, like if he could write a great book about like putting together an engine and how an engine works,
which I'm sure he did, which I'm sure
very clear. Yeah, it's probably that's true.
But my bigger problem is precisely with the ideas. It's right. such baby philosophy that it's just like literally what you were just saying, that Chapo skit about Black Mirror is just like, free will, man. Like, it's, what is it? Does it exist? It's weird, right?
Gabe.
Like, what if a computer could predict your actions, dude? Like, wouldn't that make you feel fucking weird?
Gabe, let me
like anyone, like, duh, dude. What the fuck?
I love hate. I love the hatred.
Because Gabe is in this zone and against my own feelings, I'm going to just push back a little bit in defense and say, like, is there not a place for a kind of this middle ground, right? This middle ground, it's mids. It's like you have something that's complicated enough to really like get a reluctant reader or maybe someone more casual involved in ideas and potentially then explore them further. Do you think this could be
like this is a perfect book for The View. Like Sharon Osbourne, go ahead and read this book.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the answer to your question, Matt, is obviously yes. I think that's probably why a lot of people, this book resonated with them, or Chiang's work in general has resonated with them, is because it's sort of dipping a toe, into these really fucking deep, complicated issues that have hundreds of years of very smart people thinking and writing about them, and Chiang kind of like in a popular, kind of easy to read, easy to digest way, raising these issues for people. I get that, but yeah,
it's like Alain de Botton, right? Isn't he like
God, yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like, like a similar. I think he believes he's doing a similar thing too, right? Like, it's philosophy for the people, and like Ted Chiang is like, he's kind of doing a similar thing. Like, here are some, because like. A lot of sci-fi also is more or less philosophical thought experiments, just beefed into a narrative, and so he's also maybe doing that. That's my my only pushback there.
Yeah, and there are some, I think for the whatever, that's a problematic way to say it, but for the person who has a lot of experience with philosophy, there are some things and some deep cuts in here that you can find if you're looking for them. A couple, there's like some William James references, I think, who James wrote a lot about free will, and a couple other little things. But I just, I wanted more. Like I like when the ideas in the sci-fi are really like pushing the issue and not just kind of raising it, if that makes sense.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. All right, we should probably
to get back to the story, I kind of wanted to like summarize what I thought the message of the story was that goes through the lines of like most of the stories, is that like even though this one isn't heavily like technical sci-fi, like computer sci-fi, it's more like magical, I would say that it's the main character going through this process of learning about the quote unquote technology or the magic, learning about the potential like negative effects that it could have, but going through it anyway, and then he ends up having a pretty negative experience, but then eventually being grateful for the experience. And I feel like that's kind of Chiang's message, is like throughout the whole book, it's like go through with the experience, accept the technology, and we are going to grow as a species in the end.
Right.
I think that's 100%. And now speaking of non-magical, Exhalation, the title story is about a bunch of robots.
Yeah,
with tubes.
Pretty much, right?
I was the most sort of like, this just sort of failed me conceptually. Even like I didn't really know. Do you guys have a better even understanding of what? Maybe this is where I'm an idiot, but like I was like, are they just learning about like equilibrium or like the finitude of like what's going on?
So the conceit of the story is that it's about basically I don't know if it's explicitly robots, but it's beings that function with artificial lungs, basically like the way you would like replace like a fucking air canister in a paintball gun or something like that. That's how the lungs work. You know what I mean? For these creatures,
everything felt very like steampunk. Like they were steampunk robot people.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they've basically they live in this kind of like hermetically pressurized world almost. And
I was imagining like a flat Earth bubble. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, like a bubble,
like a snow globe.
Well, because he talks
like
about
a snow globe. Yeah,
because he talks about like a huge wall of metal that reaches up apparently infinitely, and they can't see the top of it, right?
And then there's like a big reservoir of air underneath.
Yeah.
That they draw from.
And they have reached a point in their society where the air consumption is changing the pressurization, like between the consumption of the air and the expulsion of it. The air pressure is changing and everything is going to shit, and they're starting to like lose their mental faculties.
They're slowing down, and they're starting to like be out of sync with their hyper mechanized, otherwise kind of world.
Yes. And basically it's a story about like what do we do as a society when faced. I mean, I kind of thought it was like about climate change. Basically.
Yeah, I think
right?
right.
Yeah.
There's this inevitable thing coming that we have created through our consumption of a resource that we mistakenly thought was like more or less infinite, functionally infinite, and it's kind of making us reevaluate our the world we live in.
Right.
Yep.
In this case, it was like the air was not only not understood to be finite, but that it was also the main character, however you want to call it, was like making the discovery that it affected their brains in a way that they weren't aware. Like there was something about memory, and that's why the sinking was happening. They realized was like the air was like fluttering gold foil,
right,
in their brains that was like switching binaries, and
Yeah, it was a while ago that I read this, but was it? I mean, it's called Exhalation. Was kind of like the system where like not enough air was coming in, and the air that they were expelling was killing them also.
It just couldn't be reused in the same way, right?
Yeah. And the main character ends up like doing an experiment on his brain, and they end up like having some sort of technological breakthrough where they end up being hopeful that they can get through this process, but then like years go by, and it turns into like they just can't.
Here we go.
They realize that they are going to die as a species.
Right.
Yeah, they basically learn that they will die. And here is a quintessential Ted Chiang ending. Though I am long dead as you read this, explorer, I offer to you a valediction. Contemplate the marvel that is existence, and rejoice that you are able to do so. I feel I have the right to tell you this because, as I am inscribing these words, I am doing the same. So it's kind of like, be here now, we're all going to die.
Just literally like, here's the moral of the story.
Yeah.
Literally just shoot me in the back of the head right now.
Yeah. I mean, I can relate to this story in the sense that I'm basically a climate doomer, and I think humans are going to go extinct. But yeah, in terms of here's the moral stated plainly and fucking with a asterisk, you know what I mean? Like, notice this, here's the moral. Here's another passage that I wanted to read from this one, just because it's another one where it's like a little bit of a baby philosophy concept.
Yeah.
So this is from that scene that Paul referenced earlier, where the guy is dissecting his own brain to try to figure out why this stuff is happening and how he discovers it. So he has hooked himself up to machines that he can remotely manipulate to open his head, and all the parts of his head are kind of like separated and apart, connected by tubes and stuff. So that's the context. As I contemplated this vista, I wondered where my body was. The conduits which displaced my vision and action around the room were in principle no different from those which connected my original eyes and hands to my brain. For the duration of this experiment, were these manipulators not essentially my hands? Were the magnifying lenses at the end of my periscope not essentially my eyes? I was an everted person. There's a word if anyone needs one.
Nice.
I'm dibs.
I was an everted person with my tiny, fragmented body situated at the center of my own distended brain. It was in this unlikely configuration that I began to explore myself. And so, okay, talking about like locating the self, classic philosophical problem, read Bernard Williams, problems of the self. Also like ideas of sort of like Chalmers, the extended mind and that kind of thing. It's a little bit different. But you know, yeah, like I get what he's drawing on, but it's just like, I don't know. It doesn't go anywhere enough for me.
It's gestured at, not even it's just sort of like stated real quick in what is ultimately something that is not it doesn't feel like really about that. It's just more about like, yeah, we learned something that was an unfortunate truth, an inconvenient truth.
Yeah, right.
And you know, now we have to be appreciative.
Yeah, and I do think like in this story, I mean, I do think that
like wholesome, but just like
wholesome, and I do think that like the question of the sort of existential question of species level extinction is one that needs to be reckoned with, me personally, and I think that that's cool that he's raising that question in this story. But yeah, again, like just sort of disappointingly shallow, just like raising the base level of the question, but not really engaging with any of the implications to me.
My favorite part of the story was probably just like wondering what these beings were actually, like, and I was trying to piece together what exactly are they, because they do have brains and lungs, so I assumed that they were created by actual humans. And I was just thinking, like, there's not enough pieces in the puzzle in the story to put together the puzzle, I don't think. But I was just picturing them as like on like a scientist's workbench or something, and they were just in this small world that was created, and maybe their time goes by quicker or something, so they're gonna run out of air. But the scientists could put more in, but it's like it's been 20 minutes or something, and time goes by slower. I was just picturing better sci-fi in my head.
Well, yeah, I thought they were like little guys in a computer, basically, or something like that. I thought it was going to be like Reboot or something. But then we'd have
like
clock.
that episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark when they get stuck in the pinball machine.
That's right.
Yeah.
But then you have a clockmaker god concept, which is that's not what Chiang wants to talk about.
Right.
No, but he inadvertently is talking about that.
Potentially.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about the third story, the shortest one, What's Expected of Us. And Paul, you said this was your favorite one, so why?
I did. I mean, I just feel like he got to the point really quickly. It's like 2 pages, and I like the kind of horror element that is implied. Like basically, like there's this device that it basically like predicts what is it, Matt? I'm losing my train of thought, but it's like it predicts if you're gonna.
It's just a button.
Do something or not. It's a button.
It just predicts if you're gonna press it. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just dealing directly with kind of like Sam Harris free will type stuff.
Right.
And basically, if you use this enough and you're like, playing with it, and it'll just continually be correct. So it basically proves that free will is like not real, and the people that end up using it for a prolonged period of time end up going crazy, and they can't do anything, but then the end of the story too is that like it's like doesn't even matter if this is happening. You got to live your life, even though we all know now that free will is not real. You have to just do what you got to do, man. So it did end in like the kind of cheesy tone, but I did really enjoy like the kind of the horrible thought of like that actually happening to people if that was real.
Well, the key is
that's another theme for Chiang, right? Like people getting into these bad addictive insanity-inducing relationships with new technologies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The key is, right, like the key phrasing he uses, because Chang believes in free will. I watched a couple interviews. People obviously asked him about it in reference to this book, and he's like, yeah, I don't know. I don't understand this theory very well, but he said he's a compatibilist.
Compatibilism, yeah. It's bullshit. It does make sense. That's just my opinion.
It just doesn't make... Okay, I have no idea, so I'll reserve judgment on that. But that's what he says he is. It certainly doesn't make sense immediately to me, instinctively, knowing what it's supposed to meld, like, obviously. But yeah, so the phrasing of this was like, was all about the choice of how to react to the game. I think that's what's key for him there.
Yeah, and I'm being cheeky, obviously. Compatibilism is a real philosophical view that serious people believe. I reject it. I'm a libertarian about free will. But what I will say is the shout out that I got from this story is to William James, who famously wrote about free will. I don't remember the exact language, but something to the effect that, like, I believe in free will, and if I am correct, then great, free will exists, and if I'm incorrect, then I had no choice in the matter in the first place. So
yeah,
and that's basically where Chiang is going with this, like because this is written basically as like a sort of like a letter from someone in the society to an unknown future person. That's just sort of just like, hey, you need to just make the choice to believe and behave as if free will exists, even if it turns out that it doesn't.
I also liked this one, probably because of its length as well. Like I thought it just, like we were saying, like, you know, it's these things kind of raise but don't explore questions, and that's deeply disappointing if you have had any presiding interest in this stuff for any duration of time. It's just not a lot. But this one, because it's so short, it is just a fun, like, kind of spooky brain teaser more than anything else. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I thought it was punchy and pretty affecting in general. Just like the idea of taking an innocuous game, like the game, right? If you think about the game, you lost the game, kind of thing. It's like one of those
right.
just like silly things that starts to be maddening. Like yeah. So I thought it was all right.
Yeah. All right, so let's move to the beefy boy.
Are we gonna make the beefy boy?
Yeah. We have time. We'll give the people the content here. So the life cycle of software objects. This is the longest story in the book by a fair margin. The last one's pretty long, but this one's about 110 pages. So a novella functionally. And I'll say this: one thing you may have noticed in the first three stories is that there weren't really any characters, and this story has characters, and probably shouldn't have.
I remember their names in this one.
In terms of Chiang's ability to write dialogue and characters, I'll just say that.
And human interaction.
Yeah, this is his like long. This is the concept he chose to explore. This is what we've been kind of bummed out by in his other stuff. It's 110 pages or whatever, so he's trying now. He's like, what is the long term? The story takes place over years. And yeah, it involves human beings who interact with each other in very good, normal human ways, and you know, have relationships with each other.
Relationship drama.
Yeah.
All right, who wants to take a shot at the summary on this one?
I'll start it out. I'll give it a little go. I mean, it basically is about this girl named Anna who gets hired at a company, and she basically is in charge of raising these AI creatures called Digimon. I read it 1,000 times, and I can't. Digians, which are basically like little. In the beginning, they're kind of like little animal. I don't really know. They're like
Neopets,
them to a real thing. They're like Neopets.
They're cute. They're like little Pokemon, Tamagotchi. It's like they're designed to be super adorable and have like pleasant personalities.
And her character is she used to work at a zoo and take care of animals and like help raise baby animals. So they end up hiring her because they want her to kind of have that human interaction as they are raised. and grow.
They're AI, but it's like we're in some world where we're in some sort of like near future where there's a lot of tech, and one of the things that's being developed is like autonomous AI that kind of like that learns and kind of develops in a somewhat impoverished form of human intelligence, and then you know they're the kind of first people on the ground. I can't remember the name of their company.
Yeah, I'll find it.
But they're on basically Blast Neuroblast is like their like AI software, and everyone like kind of exists in this world where there's like a second life. Like everyone has like a sort of metaverse, fucking second life sort
type
of
world,
avatar world, and it's called Data Earth that everyone goes to.
And the company she works for is Blue Gamma.
Blue Gamma, right?
Blue Gamma.
So there's some commentary on like the metaverse essentially, and existing in two layers of reality, and that's to invite the question of what counts. And
well, and as the AIs grow, and like the Blue Gamma company ends up making these fairly unique AI creatures that have the ability to like read, and they end up like
What's the other?
I mean, he goes into like a lot of the
makes the ones that can read, right?
Oh, really? No, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Or they're more trainable for whatever reason.
Yeah, their literacy is higher, but they're not as like lovable.
That's
basically,
that was the major difference.
They're sort
Blue
of
Gamma they can grow it like emotionally more.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like the idea that keeps the main character Anna and some other people attached to them, but they're like kind of marketed as basically like stunt Neopet kind of things that you can take care of in real time in Data Earth, and then a bunch of competing developers try and make their own taxed AI, and it's kind of like startups fighting each other in Data Earth for like the AI products that matter, and Anna's travails as she tries to keep Blue Gamma afloat, and then it sinks under the competition and funding issues, but she's like basically loves her Digiant and considers it a life form worth keeping alive and happy.
The funny thing about this story to me, I kept thinking like, it talks about AI type creatures that, I can't help but relate to other stories that deal with like more advanced AI type beings. So it felt like a back to that first step almost in that process that could happen, and it's dealing with babies, like little baby creatures. And I was like, well, it's a baby idea too. Like this idea has already been like almost not fully, but it's like we've heard this idea so many times. You know what I mean? And I'm not gonna totally bash it because there were some interesting like details and elements that it goes into that kind of relate to like more of the world we live in now, in terms of startup companies and like corporations battling and lawyers.
It's dealing with more things at once, which I appreciate in relation to how little the other stories kind of do this. So like this is Chiang going harder and trying to synthesize a number of issues. It feels like you're right. So it's not the straightforward. It's not quite the straightforward moral, I would say. I don't know if you agree with me on that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on this one. I mean, and I think that like Paul said, there were definitely there's much more going on here, and there were some very funny, kind of cool little implications that Chiang teases out, like the new ones developed by the other company whose name is escaping me, that are like kind of smarter but like more emotionally, like less emotionally developed. They start being brought by gamers as like companions into like a game that has a lot of puzzles because they're good at solving puzzles.
Yeah.
And like those kinds of things I thought were pretty funny and well observed on Chiang's part. And I think that there's a number of like little moments like that. I think like you guys have been saying, the discussion of startup culture I think is like pretty good here, and I really did feel like this was probably the one story that like evoked any actual emotions from me, other than anger. But in terms of like when the servers, like the support servers, start getting shut down and like they're having all these problems trying to migrate the Digimon over to the other like platforms and stuff, and they're just like alone on this like hollow, like empty space that there's no server support for. Like that was evocative, and that was like well done, I thought. I felt some genuine sadness, like, damn, dude, this is just a fucking little Digimon alone in this empty fucking digital landscape. That probably sucked balls.
Yeah, the people were rough sledding to read about, but
Dear God.
The Digiants were cute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a little panda bear that like just like isn't a fully fleshed out, virtual world with like the full suite of physics and everything. And there's nobody there.
Yeah, very sad.
And I did like there's elements of them like having real life avatars too. That was pretty cool. Like the development of them actually.
Oh yeah, because there's the little like I don't know what the name of the fish is, but the little like sucker fish on the bottom of the whales. You know what I mean? There's
Remora.
Remora, yeah, that's
or
what I was
pilot fish.
Yeah, whatever. Something like that. But there's all these companies that make auxiliary products, right? So there's the one that makes the little robot that you can upload your Digimon into, and it can walk around and it'll display its face on its face.
And it has like haptic feedback, like hands and feet and stuff, so like the Digiants can come out into the world and like touch things and
Yo, the Digiants literally need to touch grass.
They honestly, dude.
And they do, and they love it, dude. I thought that was a kind of funny scene where the Jax, I think, comes out and he's like obsessed with arm hair.
Yeah.
He's like, what the fuck is this? Like, this is crazy.
Yeah. He tries to pick up poop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely some funny, like touching moments.
There's some dark moments too of them diving kind of deep into the programming of like, what if someone ends up torching a Digimon? And there's like some sort of fail-safe system, so they'll like shut down so they can't actually feel it. But then there's like a program, like a virus program that gets implemented, so it kind of shuts it down. And there's also like pretty interesting emails that break up the story that go back and forth. And at one point they're talking about like a Digian who gets basically tortured because his program was overridden. And it's pretty dark and scary. And there's other moments where like Jax is like, I want a blowjob. And I was just like, no.
No, you don't.
Just creeps me out. Please stop.
Well, yeah, because of course all these sick subcultures evolve around like just torturing these things for fun. And like,
I was wondering if he was gonna. I literally was wondering if he was going to go here as I was reading. I was like, I was pleasantly surprised to see that
because he did go there.
He did do the Rule 34 or whatever, and he did.
Well, and by the end, like the central moral quandary, because they essentially have to like develop their own kind of like community to raise funds to like do the reprogramming so they can move the Digiants over to the new platform. And the central moral quandary at the end of the story is the only people willing to offer them the money to do it is just a sex company who just wants to sell the Digiants to people who want to have sex with them.
He named his naming conventions for the companies was pretty good, but what was the sex company called, like Blissful?
Yeah, something like that.
It was.
Damn, I got
Blissbot.
Binary Desire.
Binary Desire, yeah.
Yeah,
that's a good name.
Yeah, basically, yeah. This and they have this really compelling pitch that's like morally ambiguous enough to be super uncomfortable, but also like persuasive. Where they're like, they're programmable. Like, we'll reroute their like positive feedback loop to be for like performing and receiving certain acts and all this kind of stuff.
But also make it so that they genuinely enjoy it, right? So they don't feel like they're being used. They actually just love it, and it's a good thing for them. The
moral quandary of the argument that he talks about is like, but you're also programming them to fit the person that's buying them, so that they will like what they like.
Yes,
and that's what the main characters Derek and Anna end up disagreeing about and having a falling out about.
Because there's a dystopian element to this in the sort of setting of the grounded reality of this near future where again, I'm forgetting all of the terms, but there's like Anna almost thinks about getting a job where something similar would happen to her, and all the humans are like, this is fucked up, you can't do this, and it's like she gets some sort of oxytocin / opiate infusion at this work where she has to.
So she was contemplating taking a job with the other company who has the like autist robots.
Right.
But they were, one of the conditions of getting the job is that she has to be injected with this thing that would make her feel connected to them, that in a way that like wouldn't organically happen because they're like not emotionally developed,
cold
and they're cold and they suck. So that's her sort of quandary at the end there.
So I think that was just supposed to be the real, like the human, like this is not acceptable to a human, but then like the binary desire wants to do something essentially similar with the Digiants and their like relation to sex a little bit.
The thing that I didn't understand about this, like, and why I sort of felt like it was overblown, and maybe I'm just like outing myself as just a horrible person or something, but I'm
excited.
Even in the binary desire like proposal, it would just be copies, right? They would just be selling them copies of these critters, right? Like it wouldn't be it's not like you can only have one, because that was the whole thing. Like people can copy a Digiant and use it for, there's the Rick Sanchez burp, and use it for,
what's the big deal? Sell them for sex. It doesn't matter.
Shout outs to our Apple reviewer. But like
the problem.
Who cares? I mean, this is that the Rick Sanchez point, I guess. Like you're just making a copy of it. Like it's not like Anna would have to give up the original Jax to a sex company. They would just copy him.
Well, this was another one of the, this is like the Chalmers thing. This is the Chalmers question, right? Of like, Jax would be copied, but that also means people want the Jax who had developed up to the exact moment he was at.
Right.
So she was like what was uncomfortable was like to what extent is that just the same? She still felt like it was Jax.
Yeah.
Chiang does bring up, doesn't he bring up cloning really briefly? Like a son is cloned. And I think this is what he was trying to bring up to talk about what was going to happen with Jax, is like, I forget exactly what happens, but there's like an 8-year-old boy or something that had died, and the father and mother cloned him, I think.
Yes.
And Anna talks about like the emotional stress that clone must be under just for being a clone. You know what I mean?
Right.
He was all like emo and sad.
Yeah, just like trying to live up to the expectations of a dead son.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was a nice dark little detail thrown in there.
I think he threw that in there just to like bring up the human aspect of that, even for the robots. Is that like, would Jax be okay with just them? They're just being other versions of himself. Would that not affect him emotionally?
Yeah, Chiang does put a human counter example that's akin to the digital world,
right?
To all these people, to just sort of keep things in perspective, I guess, or whatever. Yeah, and obviously, like the other like sort of implication is that like, of course, the erotic digital sex toy manufacturer obviously is the one with the most money to throw around.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, they're flexing.
Yeah, yep. Everything else is like just not gonna be able to. They're not gonna be able to afford the server transfer.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, there was again thinking about some of these, like, Anna also goes through a discussion with herself about like, because her character used to be a zookeeper, right? Which is why she was hired originally to work with these Digimon. And she goes through at the end a conversation about like, which I thought was like a little bit edgy for Chiang. There's a paragraph in there where she's like, well, why is it bad to fuck animals?
Yeah, I remember. That was the only time I was like, ooh, damn, Ted.
I was like, what? And it's just like, Yeah, yeah. So she's comparing the animal, like basically she's talking about consent, right? And like what are the limits and kind of like when does consent count, right? Like how whatever rational or mentally capable do you have to be for consent to count?
Right.
And trying to draw that line between the Digimon and animals.
Because her first example is like, if Jax is gonna like beat some guy off in a clone form, she's like, that feels to me like making a dog like peanut butter off your dick or something.
Yes,
like
exactly.
That. Like,
right,
that's
right.
literally the example Chiang uses.
Right.
So yeah, it gets weird in ways that I found to be more interesting. It better because it's 110 pages. And I don't know what to make of the fact that this was the thing that Chiang seemed, by dint of the length of it, to have found the most interesting and compelling to keep writing about, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's about, I mean, I think it's, yeah, I mean, it raises questions about animal rights and sort of something like owning pets in the first place, right? Like, which is a morally complicated issue, let alone eating animals and all that stuff, which we don't have to get into. But yeah, I mean, I do think like he does a good job of teasing out like a lot of the implications of this kind of thing between the weird sex people and the startup culture and the implications for animal rights and stuff. So he does go to a lot of important places here. Like this is the story, and I ultimately I don't think I didn't love it because I was so deeply put off by the interactions between the people, which you've already taught referenced, were just like so cringe and so poorly written and fleshed out. And like what's the other guy's name? Derek,
yes. Yeah,
and
he has
just
Marco and Polo.
his whole I'm an incel gamer and I just love my Digimon so much that my wife leaves me, and then I'm hoping that Anna breaks up with her boyfriend so we can just like fucking goon over our Digimon all day.
Yeah.
It was just
Yeah,
it was
toxic
very
friend-zoned Gamergate guy.
yeah, exactly. And it wasn't that I disliked his character for those reasons. And obviously, you know what I mean. You can write a bad character well, yeah, of course. But just the dialogue and his like when you're inside their minds, it's really
bad,
badly done.
There's one like mini chapter break because this story has like mini like chapters within it, and one ends with Anna or Derek, like his girlfriend at the time ends up leaving him, I think, because of what you just said, and he's like thinking about Anna. And,
I think it was his wife, right?
Yeah, his wife leaves.
And Chiang, writes Derek's character as kind of just being like hopeful because he's like, he's kind of always had feelings for Anna and maybe it'll work out. And the chapter break ends with like him going to meet Anna and Anna just saying like, I have big news. Me and Kyle are moving in together. And it's supposed to be like this big
so cringe
emotional moment. And I was like, this is baby writing.
Yeah.
Baby people.
This is trash, daytime melodrama kind of writing, basically.
Exactly. Yeah,
I had that Days of Our Lives vision over my face.
That very specific soap opera lighting.
Yes, just the bad
you can
acting
just picture
of his face
Derek
falling,
and Anna like on webcams with their Digimon in the background. I can't be with you.
Yeah, and there's a panda walking around in the background being like, I love dancing.
and blowjobs. Well, yeah. What else about this story? Anything?
I mean, obviously it's about AI, so it's also just a exploration of the notion of like how AI would develop, and there's some like little, I don't know, like little. I have the vintage edition. I think we all do, right? Like,
yeah.
like these little like explainer pieces at the very back of the.
Oh yeah.
Of each story, and like kind of Ted Chiang giving a explanation of what inspired them and what he was thinking about.
Yes.
So yeah, like the idea that AI, a generalized AI, or some sort of fully functioning, developing AI would be more like raising children than an out of the box, just like brilliant thing that could fully do everything and be recognizable also as like something humans could even interact with.
Yeah, and I did actually
like
find
Blade Runner type, like coming out of a bag in 2049.
Yeah, right.
Walking down and being a person,
I
like
did-
like a baby deer being born.
Yeah, exactly, dude. Lacan. Yeah, Lacan. Lacan's whole thing is not
Lacan
his,
my nuts,
not
dude.
his
Shut
whole
up.
thing. Yeah, there you go.
Nice, bro.
That was good.
Thanks.
You got him.
Got him. Got him.
But the only other thing that I did want to note about this is that on the Borges thing, there's an explicit Borges shout out early on on the second page, I think, because Data, like he's describing Data Earth and where it's all the different like continents, the different gaming continents or whatever, and one of them is Elderthorn and the other one is Orbis Tertius, which is from a Borges story. Yeah.
Is that Tlon?
Tlon Ukbar Orbis Tertius is the title of the
Okay.
Borges story, yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, well,
That was that one.
that was that one. And we're going to move on to the remainder of the book in the Patreon segment. If you are enjoying listening to the show and you like the Spinecrackers podcast, and or just any of us personally, if you think we're cool dudes that are
Yeah, we don't leave that kind of stuff off the table.
that seem chill or fun, then you can subscribe to our Patreon for as little as $2 per month to get the full episodes, access to the Discord, and there's a bunch of other tiers with various other options as well. Goodies, yeah, exactly. Yeah, so the rest of this episode will be there, and we're gonna move. How do we even do the Harry Potter segment? Can we? I don't think we can. We could do Anna.
let's-
We could do Anna and Derek, and that's it.
Okay.
All right.
You're a wizard, Harry.
You just read a book, Harry.
I did, Hagrid. I did. It was all right, I guess.
Yeah.
Are you doing a Digimon version of Harry, where he's just like saying "fuck" to Hagrid?
Digimon Harry.
No.
Ew, God, I don't want to
shut
talk
up.
about that.
Yeah, don't say that. Curse
What
it.
did I say?
Well,
no, Digimon Harry. Gabe said Digimon Harry, and I didn't like that idea.
Oh, just say okay.
So this is where we talk about, normally what we would do here is put all the characters, because we literally just read another book, which means we're allowed to talk about Harry Potter and you can't stop us. And what we do is put the characters from the book we just read into their respective Harry Potter houses. Obviously, a short story collection makes that a little bit difficult. And the stories that we've talked about don't really have characters except for the last one. So we'll just do those two. Anna and Derek, houses, go.
Hufflepuff.
Hufflepuff.
For both.
Yeah.
Yeah. But why?
Dedicated to their Digiants. Dedicated to each other.
True.
Yep.
They do love the Digiants.
Yeah.
Are they Ravenclaws?
I think Anna might be a Ravenclaw, because she also kind of like spearheads the community of like people trying to save the Digiants from their dying from the kiln of the first flame, where
Oh my God.
where
you're
they're
so. How is that Ravenclaw though?
well, because
she's also a lover of animals.
she takes charge. She's smart. She's kind of, I mean, maybe that's Gryffindor. I don't know.
Yeah, I was saying more Gryffindor. Then.
Yeah, could be.
But
If
she's
she was
also
Ravenclaw-
fascinated by animals. Like she like that was her background, raising
Yeah.
chimpanzees, and she what was that
Yeah,
zoologist.
her icons were Jane Goodall and
Yeah, Jane Goodall's a Ravenclaw.
and
type
the other
figure, I'd say.
one.
I feel like Jane Goodall might be a Hufflepuff, though.
I feel like she might be a Gryffindor.
bonus housing round.
All right, I'm just gonna say Hufflepuff for both of them.
I'm gonna bite the bullet and say Anna is a Gryffindor, and Derek is a Squib.
Oh,
He's somehow a Hufflepuff in the worst ways and a squib.
The rare Squib rating. Derek,
Yeah.
I think Derek is pretty cringe.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yep. I think in the Patreon episode, I wanna house Ted Chiang. I'm not gonna do it on the
Oh,
main episode.
damn, that's crazy.
Damn.
We've never done that. We've never housed an
know.
author before.
Sorting
want
Hat
to.
Paul.
Yeah. All right. All right. What word jumped out to y'all from this book? So this is the Scrabble. We call it the Scrabble wrap-up segment. A word that we didn't know, a new word that we learned, or just a word that would be good to drop down in a Scrabble game. I'll go first because I have one.
I have one too.
Okay, what is it, Paul?
Say it now.
It's singulate, which I've heard before, but I think it'd be a good Scrabble word.
That's a good one because that's like single, singular. Everyone knows those, but singulate.
What does it mean?
I don't even know.
what that
I
is.
don't even know what that means.
Well, I'm getting actually weird definitions. This says girdle-like marking or structure, such as a band or ridge on an animal. But when I hear that word, I feel like. And then there's another one of or relating to a singulum.
This sounds like
What
some
is
sort
a
of
Sounds fucking
zoological science
Yeah.
term.
Okay.
I have a similarly like natural like biology term or whatever. Let me pull this up. Fuck. Go. Oh my god, I hate my computer.
Me too.
Abalone.
Oh, I love abalone.
Abalone is a common name for any group of small to very large marine gastropod mollusks in the family Haliotidae.
I've actually eaten abalone before.
Hello today. Really?
Yeah. It's
They're
it's
marine snails.
It's a delicacy.
Are they
Yeah. So
fried?
You could fry it, but I don't think most people do because it's like I think probably more expensive. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
it's just A B and then the word alone.
That's
so,
right.
Yep, that's
a good
that one.
Mine is Carol, Carrel,
I thought about that one too. Yeah.
which is from the last story, and I guess it just basically means like cubicle. It's like a little like if you're in like a internet cafe and it's the computer because the story is basically people who work at functionally an internet cafe. Except for talking to yourself from a different quantum universe.
Yeah.
Little wrinkle.
Yeah. But, if it's like separated with like, partitions or whatever, apparently that's a term for that is Carol, which I had never heard before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Only one thing left.
Dibs not.
Scores.
Before the Patreon segment. Scores. So
I get to go last.
I'll go first. As I've said already, I didn't like this book. And, I think there's stuff here to latch onto. I do think it serves a purpose in terms of bringing, whatever, wine moms or whoever into some of these,
The benighted wine moms.
dipping their toes into some philosophical concepts. That's a good thing. Sure. So
Sure.
philosophical concept evangelism. I'm in the abstract here for it, but between the basic level of Chiang's discussion of some of these difficult concepts, for the most part, and the at best sparse and at worst just like very bad writing. There's just not enough here for me to like feel good about it. Like if the question of free will has ever occurred to you in your life and you've thought about it for more than 7 minutes, you've thought about it exactly as much as Ted Chiang, or at least that's what comes through in these stories. And I have thought about it for more than that amount of time, and so I didn't get a lot out of these conceptually. I know I'm being a dick and like whatever, like philosophy degree elitism and stuff, but I genuinely think it wasn't explored sufficiently, and there weren't enough new wrinkles or takes added for me. So yeah, between that and the just bad writing, I don't know. I didn't like it. It's a 1.7 for me.
Okay.
Wow. Lowest score ever by Gabe.
No, I think I gave the Wellback like a 1.3.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I'm not quite as like down on it as Gabe. But I mean, if there's one thing I'll just, enthusiastically agree with. It's that the writing is bad. And hey, listen, that's a bad situation for a book. I didn't, you know what I mean? Like, some of the concepts, maybe because I'm not as robustly versed in like the deep philosophical literature on these issues, was probably a little bit more pleasing to my brain. But yeah, I mean, like, basically the writing was pretty poor. The concepts themselves were, as we mentioned, sort of more or less just kind of brought up and presented to you with very little fleshing out of those things. And at worst, it feels like, in the way that Labatut, I guess, was like just too bleak and whatever on science's sort of potential effects on human beings. This felt a little too cheerleading in a way that, it just rubbed me the wrong way, and I thought it was icky. So I'm gonna just say it was pretty meh for me. So I'm gonna give it a 2.3.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, everything you guys said, I'm basically like totally in agreement with. Just like the writing, I need good writing. You know me, and it was just so dry. I really couldn't believe it at some point. So I was just like, this is a top 10 book. And this is the writing's. It's not even like it's. I don't know. I don't want to get into it, but yeah, the writing is really bad. I'm obviously not like a philosophical major expert in any way, but I still felt the ideas to be shallow to me, and not really thought out in the way that like many other sci-fi writers even have fleshed out, maybe not similar ideas, but ideas in a more fleshed out way. Yeah, and like, the lack of character development was really big, really bad. We didn't really talk about it, but I didn't. Actually, no, I'll bring it up later. But yeah, I mean, overall, I really did not enjoy the book. I did actually read a little bit of it on audiobook, just the first story, and the segments discussing each story that were in the back. That was Ted Chiang would actually come on and read what he wrote, and it was, when I read that, I was like, "Is this really happening? This is like the cringiest thing I've ever heard."
Very awkward. Yeah,
it was really awkward, and yeah, I mean, that alone,
that's subject matter for a story.
Yeah.
Yeah, think about that.
Honestly, like that alone brings it down like a whole point for me. Just like the training wheel aspect was like one of the wildest things I've ever read in a book. Having that kind of experience. But yeah, I think it's a 1.9 for me.
All right. Wow. Damn.
Yeah. Most hated. Yeah. All right. Well, as we've already said, the discussion is going to continue. We're going to go through the rest of the stories on the Patreon segment, the full episode, and we're only about halfway through the book, so take that for what it's worth.
A lot more griping to come.
To come. Actually, my favorite story is in the back half, so I'll talk about that. If you want to hear that, again, patreon.com/spinecrackers. If you don't, that's fine as well, but hit the like button if you're listening on YouTube, subscribe, comment, and instagram.com/spinecrackers. Not instagram.com. That was cringe.
Yeah, that was cringe.
There's a reason you don't like this book, because you can't engage with high-level ideas about technology in the future.
Yeah, maybe I'm just a Luddite. I don't know.
You're a freaking squib. Like,
yeah.
But yeah, Twitter, Instagram, Spinecrackers. Thank you so much for listening. And yeah, I don't know. I love you deeply on a personal level, listener.
Me too.
You're my dude.
Oh my God.
You listener.
That's not gonna make it to the Patreon segment.
You listener are my Jax Digimon.
You'll only understand that if you read the book. Yeah.
Or listened.
Yeah. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Love you. Bye.